Back then, the night was heavy, thicker than tar. The sea below us groaned, restless, as if it already knew the blood it was about to drink. Midnight, June 6th, 1944. D-Day. Funny thing about war, you don't feel like a hero when you're in it. You just feel small. A man in the dark carrying too much weight on his back, praying his chute opens and wondering if tonight is the night you meet your maker. I was with the 101st Airborne. We weren't the big guns, the ones storming the beaches at dawn with rifles clutched to their chests. No, we were ghosts. Sent in early, behind Hitler's lines, dropped into the French countryside hours before the invasion. Our job was simple on paper, impossible in truth. Cut off the Germans, block the roads, seize the bridges, keep their tanks and reinforcements away from Normandy's beaches. Hitler never saw it coming. He thought the blow would land elsewhere, Calais maybe. His armies dug deep, waiting where they thought the hammer would fall. But we, America's sons, were already in the sky, flying through the storm, heading straight into the lion's den. We climbed aboard those C-47s in the dark. The engines thundered like angry gods, shaking our bones. I remember tightening my chin strap 3, 4, maybe 5 times. I couldn't stop fiddling with it. My hands were sweating, my stomach turning over itself like a bad carnival ride. One of the boys, Miller from Ohio, he pulled out a crumpled photograph of his girl, kissed it once, tucked it back into his breast pocket like it was a shield that could stop bullets. Another, McAllister, was whispering the Lord's Prayer under his breath, lips trembling, voice barely audible over the engines. And me, I just closed my eyes, listened to the sound of the plane, and I thought of home. The smell of my mother's cornbread, the crack of a baseball bat on a summer day, my father's old hound barking at shadows on the porch. Because once we jumped, those things, they felt like they belonged to another life. The flak started before we even crossed the French coast. Explosions tearing holes in the night sky, black blossoms of smoke and fire. You could hear the shrapnel rattling against the fuselage like hail on a tin roof. Men cursed, shouted, some cried out for God. The red light over the door glowed, bathing us in blood. Then the jump master's voice, rough, sharp, cutting through the storm. Stand up, hook up. We rose as one, boots stomping the metal floor, hands grabbing our static lines. Check equipment. Fingers trembling, eyes darting. Sound off for equipment check. Okay, okay, okay. One by one the voices rolled down the line, each man confirming he was ready to leap into hell. And when that green light blinked on, my heart stopped. Door flung open. The world outside was chaos, tracer fire streaking past, flak bursting like fireworks from the devil himself. And then we jumped. The wind hit me like a hammer. The roar of engines faded into nothing. It was just me, the night, and the earth rushing up to greet me. For a few moments, floating there beneath my chute, the war felt far away, quiet, peaceful even. I could hear the distant surf crashing on the beaches, the faint cries of men scattered in the sky, and for a fleeting second I thought, maybe I'll live through this. But then tracers whipped past my legs, glowing green and red, tearing the night open. The Germans were shooting at us like ducks in a carnival stall. Some chutes went up in flames. Men screamed, bodies twisted. Silence followed. I clenched my rifle, pulled the chute's straps, braced myself for landing. The French fields rushed closer, dark hedgerows, shadowed farms, and then impact, hard, brutal. My ankle twisted, pain shot up my leg, but I was alive. Alive in the middle of Hitler's backyard. That's when the real battle began. When my chute finally collapsed in the hedgerow, the world was blacker than ink. No lights, no moon, just the ragged breath in my lungs and the pounding of my heart. I fumbled with my harness, knife trembling in my hand. It took longer than it should have. My fingers wouldn't obey me, numb with fear. When the straps finally gave way, I collapsed to the dirt, pressing my body flat, listening for footsteps. But there was nothing, just the wind, just the frogs in the marshes, just the ticking of my watch. Then a shot, far off, then another, then the muffled thump of a grenade. We were scattered. Men of 101st and 82nd dropped miles off course, some landing right in the middle of German strongholds, others drowned in flooded fields the enemy had prepared to swallow us whole. Hitler thought he'd built a wall of steel, but what he didn't expect was us. Farmers' sons, factory hands, coal miners, clerks, dropped from the sky like ghosts, 100 here, 50 there, scattered like seeds in the night, yet sprouting into an army behind his very lines. I crawled through the hedgerow, mud clinging to my face, rifle heavy in my hands. The night smelled of wet earth, cow dung, and smoke drifting from some farmhouse chimney. Every sound made me freeze, a snapping twig, a rustle in the brush. Was it one of ours, or one of theirs? Then voices, harsh, guttural, German. I pressed myself low, belly to the ground. 4 silhouettes moved down the road, helmets catching faint glimmers of starlight. Their boots crunched gravel. One carried a flashlight, sweeping the hedgerows. They were hunting us already. I remember clutching that rifle so tight my knuckles burned. Every muscle in me screamed, "Fire! Fire before they see you!" But training whispered louder, "Wait! Wait until they're close. Wait until it matters." And just as my finger curled around the trigger, a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I nearly yelped, nearly pulled the trigger by mistake. But when I spun around, there he was, Miller, that kid from Ohio, mud smeared across his face, eyes wide as lanterns. He put a finger to his lips. "Don't." We waited, frozen, as those Germans passed no more than 15 feet away. Their voices barked back and forth, one laughing about some girl he'd left in Berlin, another cursing the damp cold of Normandy. And then they moved on. Their boots faded into the distance. We lived another minute to fight. We crept through the fields, picking up strays as we went. McAllister was the first we found, half soaked from a flooded ditch. He looked like death itself, water dripping from his helmet. But when he saw us, he grinned. "Thought I'd be fighting the whole damn Wehrmacht by myself," he whispered. One by one, our squad formed out of the shadows, men I barely knew, yet who suddenly felt like brothers. No officers, no radios, just scraps of orders and a common purpose. We weren't an army that night. We were scattered sparks in the dark. But together, we'd light a fire Hitler couldn't put out. The first farmhouse we came upon was quiet, too quiet. A lantern flickered inside, casting long shadows across the yard. We moved in slow, rifles raised, hearts pounding. I pushed the door open with the barrel of my gun. The hinges groaned. Inside, a family. A farmer, his wife, 2 children, eyes wide with terror, frozen in place as if we were ghosts. I lowered my rifle, pulled the American flag patch from my sleeve, pointed at it, then whispered, "Americans, amis," friends. The farmer's wife burst into tears. She clasped her hands together, muttering prayers, thanking God. The little boy, he just stared at us like we were giants from some storybook. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just our fight, it was theirs too. From that farmhouse, we set off again, through orchards, across streams, through pastures littered with cows that looked at us with bored eyes, as if war was none of their concern. And then we hit the road. That road was life or death, because if the Germans moved their armor down it, Omaha Beach would drown in American blood before the sun even rose. Our orders were clear: hold the road at all costs. And the sound we heard in the distance told us it was coming. Engines, low, heavy, growling like beasts in the night. German trucks, half-tracks, maybe even tanks, rolling straight toward Normandy, straight toward the boys who'd be storming the beaches at dawn. We had to stop them. The rumble grew louder. The road beneath our boots began to tremble. Engines, gears grinding, metal tracks biting into gravel. The Germans were coming. We were maybe 15 men, scattered paratroopers from 3 different companies, lost, cold, wet. None of us even knew exactly where we were. But when that sound came rolling through the hedgerows, every man looked the same. Eyes wide, jaws clenched, hands tight on rifles. Because if we didn't stop them here, those beaches would be painted red come sunrise. We ducked into the hedgerows. McAllister whispered, "Set up along the ditch. Keep low." Miller clutched his bazooka, his hands trembling like a preacher at the pulpit. 2 others readied their gammon bombs, little sock-shaped charges meant to tear holes in armor. The rest of us leveled rifles and machine guns, hearts drumming in our throats. We waited. The convoy rolled closer. First, the growl of engines, then headlights. 2 beams stabbing through the darkness, sweeping the road like searchlights. A truck, packed with German infantry. Behind it, a half-track bristling with machine guns. And behind that, the unmistakable silhouette of a panzer tank. The kind of monster that could chew through a company of infantry without breaking a sweat. McAllister raised his hand, waited until the first truck was nearly upon us. Then he clenched his fist. The night erupted. The bazooka roared, spitting fire as Miller squeezed the trigger. The rocket screamed down the road, striking the truck's engine block with a thunderous explosion. Flames lit the hedgerows, silhouettes of screaming men tossed like rag dolls. We opened fire. Rifles cracking, machine guns chattering, tracer rounds slicing through the dark. Germans pummeled from the wreckage, scrambling for cover, shouting orders we couldn't hear over the roar. And then McAllister rose from the ditch, gammon bomb in hand, sprinting like hell itself was chasing him. He leapt onto the half-track, slammed the bomb against the armor, and dove away. The explosion tore through steel, flipping the vehicle onto its side in a shower of sparks and fire. The screams inside, I can still hear them. But the Panzer, oh, that damn Panzer kept rolling. Its cannon fired once,
The shell screamed past, obliterating a farmhouse down the road. The ground shook, the air filled with dust and debris. We fired everything we had at it. Rifles, grenades, even a mortar shell we found abandoned near the ditch. Nothing seemed to touch it. The beast rolled forward, unstoppable. And that's when Miller did something so crazy it might have saved us all. He ran out into the road, dead center, bazooka slung over his shoulder, standing tall like some madman from a dime store novel. He shouted, "Cover me!" His voice cracked, but his legs didn't stop. We fired with everything we had, trying to keep the Panzer's gunners pinned. Miller dropped to one knee, aimed, and fired. The rocket streaked through the night, slamming right into the Panzer's tread. The explosion shook the earth. Sparks flew, metal shrieked as one of the treads snapped loose. The Panzer ground to a halt, its engine roaring, its cannon swiveling desperately. And then another gammon bomb, hurled by one of the boys from the 82nd. It landed right atop the tank's engine deck. The blast lit the night like lightning. Flames burst from the Panzer's hatches. Smoke billowed. The monster finally fell silent. When the fire died down, the road was littered with twisted steel and broken bodies. German helmets lay scattered in the dirt. The air stank of gasoline and gunpowder. We were alive. Against all odds, we had stopped them. But as we regrouped in the hedgerow, reloading, catching our breath, we all knew the truth. That was just one convoy, one road, and there were dozens more out there ready to roll toward the beaches. If we wanted D-Day to succeed, we'd have to keep fighting. Every mile, every field, every bridge. And the night was far from the over. When the smoke cleared from that burning Panzer, the night was still alive with war. Gunfire cracked in the distance. Flares arced across the sky, glowing red and green, casting ghostly shadows over the hedgerows. We pressed on, step by step, field by field, gathering strays like lost sheep. By dawn, we weren't 15 men anymore. We were nearly 50, 101st, 82nd, even a few stragglers from other outfits. No officers, no maps, just determination, grit, and the knowledge that everything rested on us holding the line. Somewhere out there, the beaches waited. Thousands of boys, our brothers, were about to come crashing into Hitler's wall. They were counting on us to choke the roads, to seize the bridges, to make sure no German armor reached the sand before the tide turned red. We came upon a stone bridge just as the first light touched the sky. The dew clung to the grass, and the river below whispered like it didn't know a war was raging above it. But we knew, if the Germans took that bridge, they'd have a clear path to Utah Beach. So we dug in, Mines planted, machine guns braced, rifles sighted. And when the first German column rolled into view, we unleashed hell. Grenades arced through the dawn. Machine guns barked. Men shouted, cursed, prayed. Smoke choked the air. For every German that tried to cross, 2 more fell. The bridge became a killing ground. And still we held. I'll never forget when the first American landing craft reached Utah Beach. From that bridge, we could just make out the faint thunder of naval guns offshore, the silhouettes of ships on the horizon, and the gray shapes of landing craft pushing toward the sand. For a moment, we stopped shooting, stopped moving, just watched. It hit us then. We'd done it. Hitler never expected us. He thought his lines were safe, his tanks ready, his armies unchallenged. But we were already there, behind his walls, cutting his lifelines. The German army, for all its might, had been outmaneuvered by farm boys, steel workers, and young men who'd barely learned how to shave before strapping on a parachute. We were the tip of the spear, and the spear had struck true. By nightfall, the beaches were secure, but the fields of Normandy, they were littered with more than gear and weapons. They were littered with brothers, with boys who jumped but never landed, boys who fought but never saw the dawn. And I still carry their names, their faces, their laughter, because while Hitler never expected us, they gave everything to prove him wrong.
If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. These tales of courage, sacrifice, and history, they matter. They remind us not just of war, but of the humanity that lived, breathed, and bled through it. If you enjoyed this kind of storytelling, do me a small favor. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and maybe share this video with someone who still believes history should be remembered, not forgotten. Because every click, every comment, every voice helps keep these stories alive for generations to come. And trust me, we've only just begun.